Okay, after lunch, we'll get into some offense. Again, 4 stations, hopefully 15-20 minutes a piece, and then we can switch, and get the kids through all of them. On the main field, we'll do some batting practice just off of some underhand front toss. Let me explain how it'll kind of go down on the main field. 10 kids in each group. Let's have 3 kids in at a time getting ready to hit. The other 7 kids spread out in the field. You can see I got 1 bucket out there. The idea with that is 1 player or 2 players, depending on how you want to arrange it, 1 player out there on the bucket. They're on the bucket. And that means their job is to collect the baseballs from all the other players as they field them. Not a good use of our time for the players in the field to be catching balls and throwing them into you as the coach here. As the coach, you got to pay attention to how the players are going behind you to make sure that there's not a ball in the air and all the kids are paying attention. But we can't be wasting time with all the kids throwing balls back into you. So the kids out in the field that are fielding, as they're collecting all the baseballs, they're tossing them off the infield on the edge of the outfield grass to the player or players at the bucket, and those kids are collecting all the balls and putting them in here. Then we empty this bucket, we fill up this bucket, we switch the bucket so we can be as efficient and fast as possible. The 3 kids that are batting, 1 kid is batting, 1 player is on deck, getting ready to go. And while this player is batting and this player is on deck, we have a 3rd player who's getting their helmet on, getting their gloves on, getting all their stuff ready to go for hitting. So you gotta pay attention to, as 1 player exits on their round of 8 or 10 swings, have another player come in so that the player that just left hitting can get their glove, go out and make some plays. The on-deck player comes in to hit. The player who was in the hole getting their stuff on comes on deck, and we got another player coming in here to hit. So all you're gonna do as the coach, sitting behind the L screen that we have, kid is digging in, kids get ready when they're in their stance, leaning out from the side of the screen, show them the baseball, give them a good low underhand feed, nice and straight, not much of a lob, nice and straight, with a nice kind of pendulum action in your arm, trying to throw strikes right down the middle. That player gets 8 or 10 swings. After their 8th or 10th swing, probably not a good idea to have a live play where they run around the bases, because it often turns into a snowball fight and it can take a lot of time. So have them finish on their 8th or 9th or 10th swing. If you have to give them 1 or 2 more, it's okay, but we can't roll too long with any 1 kid. Hopefully on the last swing, they get to put 1 in play and then switch next player, switch next player, just have everyone rotate through. The reason I'm making a point of describing how this one has to work pretty efficiently, we can't spend a lot of time with balls being put in play and we're making plays, is because the entire rotation of the drills is going to be based on this. Every kid here has to get an at-bat, and we hopefully got to make sure that each kid can have their at-bat within 1.5 to 2 minutes. So we got to be pretty quick with it, so that in the 15-20 minutes that we have, we can make sure that each player gets to have their at-bat of 8 or 10 swings. Okay, off the main field, second drill I want to do will be between the cones. We can probably use one of the baseball fields, but it's not actually going to use the whole baseball field. As you can see how I got it set up, there's the tee here, and players are batting the ball off the tee out into the field that we've made, not as wide as a baseball field. We really want to encourage kids to focus on hitting the ball up the middle, so we'll figure out where the cones have to go. Again, not as wide as the baseball field, so it's not coming out from home plate at like a 90-degree angle, maybe more like a 45-degree angle coming out from home plate. 1 team is batting, 1 team is fielding. Now, it's a very simple game. All the players that are batting get a chance to step up and hit 4 or 5 baseballs into the field. Generally, the way this ought to work is each team gets 20 total swings. So if there's a team of 5 kids, each player gets 4 swings for a total of 20. If there's a team of 4 kids, that team, each player gets 5 swings for a total of 20. So just depending on how many kids you got, that's how you're going to have to determine it. Probably best if you have 1 player step up and take their 4 or 5 swings all at one time so they can get into a bit of a groove. And it's just a points-based game where 2 players are standing in front of this line. And again, it's not going to be this small. We'll figure out the right distances. But 2 players are standing in front of this line. They're not allowed to go behind this line. They have to defend this line. As that player bats baseballs out to them, these players have to try to make a catch and not let the ball get past them. If the ball gets past these first players and it's between the cones, then the batter gets 1 point for that hit. If the batter hits a ball and not only does it go past these players, but it also goes past the next line of 2 or 3 players who are defending this line. If it gets past this line, then they get 2 or 3 points, whatever you determine it to be. Sometimes it will be decided by the coaches that past the first line, landing here, you get 1 point. If it's a ground ball that gets past the second line, it's 2 points. Sometimes it's determined that a ball that goes over everybody equals 3 points. And it's up to you to decide if you want to build that into your game. Sometimes it's a good idea, sometimes it's a bad idea. But the key considerations are each team gets 20 swings. The players on the front line aren't allowed to go past this line to make a play. And the players defending the back line aren't allowed to go ahead of this line to make a play or behind this line to make a play. Something to note, a ball that goes over the front line, but one of the rear team players makes that catch in the air, it's no points. It's got to be a ground ball that gets through, or a line drive or a fly ball that lands in the ground. So a caught ball back in this area doesn't result in points. Simply have the one team batting take their swings. Have the other team that was just on defense takes their swings. Both teams get 20 swings and we'll see who wins. If there's enough time to play a second or a third game, please do so. You can do a second game or a second inning of the same team and carry on with one game, or you can do one game where the offensive team and the defensive team switch and that's the end of the game, and then you can keep the same teams. You can switch teams to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. And you can usually, within 20 minutes, if you do it pretty good, you can get maybe 2, maybe 3 games out of this. Okay, so just a little further batting practice. This will be something we'll do again with these soft rubbery balls. They're really fun to hit. You got to kind of square it up to get it to go somewhere. So they give a lot of good feedback to the kids to let them know if they're hitting the ball pretty well or not hitting the ball pretty well. And again, they travel pretty straight even with a little bit of wind. They don't really hurt that much. They hurt a little bit. So the way we'll have this set up is, I hope you can see the 2 shapes that I put out here. We can have 2 kids hitting at the same time because we don't have to have the kids on defense so keyed into the one hitter, because even if they do get whacked with one of these, it's going to sting a little bit, but it's not going to break them. So what we'll do is bucket of balls with the coaches right here. One coach here, one coach here, and again, this isn't the right spacing. We'll have to spread it out. We don't want the batters to be this close to each other. So even if it's on like a bit of an angle or an arc, that's okay, just as long as they're generally hitting into one direction. So these obviously are going to be a little bit wider, but the coaches can be pretty close to each other because they're going to work out of the same bucket. This is a bucket out here where all the defensive players are, and they're just collecting balls. You can have them do it with bare hands. You can have them do it with their gloves. Keep it a little bit fun for the kids. So what we'll do is one coach is on this side on a knee, and similar to soft toss, just working on a good pendulum, showing the kid the ball, making sure that player is in their stance ready to go. And it's a gentle back forward, nice low line drive. This player will hit a ball out into the field, and maybe we can figure out the timing where it's a little bit staggered, but if it's not totally staggered, it's okay, because like I said, these balls aren't going to break any of the kids. So hopefully this coach is tossing to this player for a swing, and then this coach is tossing to this player who's also taking a swing. Now, depending on how engaged your kids are in the defense, it's pretty fun. Sometimes they get a little crazy and they start whipping these balls around trying to kill each other. So maybe we have to have not so many kids out here, in which case we can have 2 players off to the side kind of on deck getting their swings ready. But at the same time, we don't really have to do that, because this is something that when those 2 players are done their 8 or 10 swings, we can just switch them out and have 2 players come in ready to go real quick. And the reason I'm saying maybe we don't need to have them have an on deck per se in this station is because if we move pretty quick with this, it's not like we're hitting baseballs into the field and we have to take a lot more care. These balls being a little bit more spongy, it can be a little bit more rapid fire. Hopefully we can get each batter their 8 or 10 swings a little quicker on a little bit of a quicker pace. So in this exercise, we could probably get all the kids through and actually give them 2 at-bats, depending on how quick we move. maybe we can even get them 3 at-bats, but that's up to you to determine on what kind of pace you want to move in relation to the kids that you have in your group. Maybe they're working well, maybe they're listening, maybe they're not listening, maybe they're wiling out a little bit too much, so maybe you're going to have to do some work to pay attention to what kind of restraints and what kind of pace you can keep them operating at. Okay, and then the last offensive drill, the 4th drill we'll do for offense will be some base running. We'll go out to whichever field we've decided isn't the one that's occupied by the game that we're doing, the Between the Cones game. So very simply, 2 things that I want you to do. Please, in your knowledge of baseball and as a coach, mix in whatever parts of base running that you would like to. But 2 parts of this that I would definitely like you to do. I've got home plate and first base, and I've got 3 buckets, and I just call this drill baseline lines. And all it is, it's helping the kids remember that as they hit the baseball and put it in play, not only do they have to run to first, but they have to pay attention to what kind of hit they got. It's hard for a lot of kids to understand that because a lot of kids just hit the ball and they're so excited that they hit the ball and they just want to be safe, so they just put their heads down and run to first and don't really pay much attention. These buckets are here to help the kids understand that there are generally 3 paths that they might need to run on as they hit a baseball trying to be safe at first. Now simply, it's 3 different scenarios that might happen. 1, they might hit a ground ball, and as they're running to first and they look up to see what's happening, they see that the infielder has fielded the ball and then going to throw to first to try to get them out. So in that first scenario, the player would hit the ball and run straight up the line, hit the front of the bag, trying to be safe. That's scenario 1. The next scenario is the player would hit the ball, and it's a ground ball again, but it goes through or the infielder misses it. So the player, as they hit the ball, head down, running to first. When they look up to see what's happening, they see that the play hasn't been made on the infield, the ball has gone to the outfield. It's likely they're going to be safe at first. So in this situation, rather than staying up the line, they're actually going to turn out a little bit, kind of banana root-ish, hit the inside corner of the base, and see what happens. The third scenario is where a player does not hit the ball in the infield. Either it's a line drive that goes in the outfield or a fly ball or something deep. And rather than staying on the line on this third scenario, they would hit the ball and immediately the ball's going out there. So our player's going to get a little bit wide immediately, not going up the baseline, going a little bit wide. So they can again hit the inside corner of the base and start to either turn to second or see that the ball has been caught and being thrown back in which case they come back to first base safe. So I would definitely like you to do that as a simulated kind of thing. So coach at the pitcher's mound and just kind of faking a pitch to the kid. The kids don't even have to have a bat, or you can have them with a bat. It's up to you. They can just literally hold their thumb and use that as the bat. And on your pitch from the coach at the pitcher's mound, the player is going to take a swing, and maybe we do 1 or 2 reps where they go up the line on a ground ball where the defense is trying to get them out at first. Maybe we do 1 or 2 reps where they hit a ground ball and they see that it gets through, in which case they're kind of taking that little baby banana route, and then maybe we can do a couple reps where on your pitch they blast one into the outfield and they immediately get wide off of the baseline so they can make a good turn and start thinking about second. That's the first bit of base running that I would like you to definitely do. The second bit is, let's just get the kids to simulate hitting a bomb and they get to run a home run and we can actually time them. So get them to run this through once or twice. It's really fun for the kids to pretend that they're hitting a home run, and then if you time it, they get to see how fast they are. Some of them like to compete with the other kids in the group to find out who's fastest. Some kids don't really want anybody to know how fast they were, and they would just like to know that hopefully their time got a little bit better. So hopefully you can get through this maybe once or twice, so everyone gets a chance to run a home run once or twice. And all you're really going to do is, again, as one of the coaches, simulate throwing a pitch. And the player is going to take a swing, and the other coach, imagining when that player makes contact with the baseball, that's when you want to start the clock. So all we're going to do is coach is going to throw a pitch, player is going to swing, and at the moment of contact, start the clock. Encourage your players out of the box to immediately get a little bit wide. Encourage your players to hit the front inside corner of the base with whichever foot. and encourage them to run the bases around a bit of an arc, kind of like a circle, letting them know that, you know, if it's a gradual circle, it's going to be the fastest. We don't want to run at angles, and encouraging them to understand that rather than running a wide circle, stepping on the middle or the outside of the base, every single base we want to hit that front inside corner because that's the smallest distance that we can possibly travel. So the baseline lines and timing them on a couple home runs, they're both simulated things that have to operate off of you as the coach, kind of giving them a cue to swing or when to. And then again, as I said, anything else that you can imagine that might be something that you'd like to run with base running for the kids, please feel free to do so. But at this station, we're not going to have gloves, we're not going to have balls, we're not going to really play any baseball-y type of stuff. It'll just be some base running exercises to help remind the kids what they got to do when they do put that ball in play.